Hello, I'm Joe Lenton and welcome to Original Art Photography. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at how to create star trails images. This is the post-production phase of this, so you will need to have shot a series of images at night. So on your tripod, same location, same composition and everything, leave it exactly as it is. Shoot a series of images at an exposure length of about 20 to 30 seconds, but keep everyone the same. And for best results you need to shoot for at least about half an hour really to get a good trail developing afterwards. So you can see I'm in Lightroom at the moment and I've got all the images selected that were taken last night at this churchyard in Norfolk, and you can see we've got some starry skies behind it. What we're going to do before we start working on it in Photoshop is just go over into the Develop module just to apply a few changes before we start trying to merge them all together. So the foreground here is a little bit dark, so I'd like to just brighten that up a bit so we can bring the shadows slider up on that so we can get a little bit more of that churchyard in the foreground. I'll take the clarity slider up a little bit, but we want to be a bit careful not to overdo that. You'll see that the sky is looking fairly blue. That's partly because I've used a tungsten white balance to try and counteract the light pollution from nearby roads and cities. Otherwise you tend to get a very sort of orange hue to it all, and I think the blue looks more interesting and more natural. If you want to try and make the stars stand out from the sky a bit more, you can use the contrast. You see you're very quickly darkening down the whole image if you do that, but you can see that that brings the stars out from the sky that little bit more. So to avoid it affecting everything, you can use a adjustment filter like this one, the graduated one, and you can just put some contrast in there and then drag that down through the sky so that you can just add that in where you want it and not where you don't. Okay, so I might just bring the overall exposure up a little bit more just so we can get the church at the bottom that little bit clearer. Okay, that will do for now. You can play around with the highlights, but you don't want to lose the actual stars themselves. So if it just takes a little bit of this little glow off here, that's fine, but you don't want to start losing any detail with your clouds. If you want to change the white balance at all at this time, then of course you can do so. An easy way to try it, for example, is using the dropper here, and you can go for some of the grey stone on the church and see what sort of colour you get. So if I just undo that and redo it, if you can see that it does change it a little bit. You get slightly more of a bluey green looking grass to it when we do that. So that's without changing it, and that's with the eyedropper. I think I prefer it before, to be honest, so I'm going to leave that at the tungsten white balance that came in at. Okay, now we also need to straighten things up a little bit. The church is leaning back a bit. There's not going to be a lot we can do to make it perfect, but we can straighten it up a little bit. So you go to the transform section down here and slide the vertical slider across to bring that up a bit, and you can then also use rotate to level the building off, roughly sort of like so. And then with the crop overlay, you can then drag that into where you want that to be. The only sort of downside of shooting like this with the ultra wide is that you do get that distortion. You do want to get as much in as you possibly can for obvious reasons, but you do get quite a bit of distortion with it. So we'll leave that like that for now. I mean the lens was pointing upwards, so that is why you've got the church looking backwards a little bit, but I wanted to get as much sky in as possible to show you the star trails in action. You can see we shot at ISO 1600, so before we go into Photoshop I just want to have a look in the Detail tab over here. Just take that to the corner of the church there. You can see a little bit of speckling, but it's not too bad. This camera does handle the noise very well. You can bring in a little bit of noise reduction just till that smooths over a little, and then sharpen the edges back up again using the sharpening slider, and then go to masking, hold down the Alt key, and you can slide that across until you're only getting the outlines, because you don't want to sharpen any of the detail in the clouds, otherwise it just brings noise back. So take that across, and that can control the sharpening. So let's have a look at the before. Okay, there was a bit of grid, a little bit of chroma noise in there, and then going back, and what we've got done now, yeah, that's just tidied that up a little bit for us. Okay, now that we've got that done on one image, we need to apply that to all of the ones that we've got highlighted here. So we use sync for that. So we click on sync, click on check all, so all the boxes are going to be affected, and click on synchronize. Now what this will then do is apply those same settings to every single one of these images that we've got here. So we'll just have to wait a little while for it to do that. You can see them gradually change as the computer applies the settings there. You'll see these ones along the bottom right here will start to change soon as well. See it working its way across. It's important to shoot everything at the same white balance so that you can just apply these changes this quickly. Otherwise you risk having to actually fiddle with individual files potentially, which is a real pain. You just want to be applying this to the whole batch. So try and keep all of your camera settings the same. Even if your white balance isn't what you want, at least if you've got something fixed, it makes it very easy to just then do the same with everything. A few more that still haven't done. We've got quite a lot of images that we're bringing in here. So just give it another minute just to let that copy the settings across to all of those. And then what we're going to do is open them as layers in Photoshop. So we're nearly there. You can see there's another couple here with the dots on that haven't been done yet. Okay, so they've all been done. Let's slide that back and check. Okay, looks like we're about there. Right then, so now what you need to do is to take it into Photoshop as layers. Do it as layers because otherwise you're going to end up with a whole load of tabs, which is really not great. You don't want to have that. So you go to right click and go to Edit In, and then go down to Open as Layers in Photoshop. It sometimes helps if you've got Photoshop already open when you try this. I'm not quite sure why, but my computer has sometimes refused to do it properly if I haven't had Photoshop already open. So it will now start to bring those files across into Photoshop, and it will put them all into one document, and it will do them all as layers. To save you sitting here watching and waiting, I will cut the video to the point where they have all come into Photoshop, so you don't have to wait. Now we've got all of the layers into Photoshop, we can then blend them. Incidentally, if you have any trouble getting your images into Photoshop, the first thing to do is just try waiting, because sometimes if you're trying to import a lot of images from Lightroom, there can be a bit of a delay as it processes it. Otherwise you can try closing and opening Photoshop again, and sometimes that can kick the process off. But try and avoid sending things to Photoshop more than once, because you might get your computer in a bit of a pickle. So best thing, like I normally do, is just to set it up and running and go off and do something else for a little while, and then when you come back you've got it all there. So you can see we've got all our layers here on the bottom right hand side all stacked up. What we need to do is select them all. So you select the top and go all the way down, scroll down to the bottom, hold down Shift and click the bottom one. So we've got them all selected. Now we need to change the blend mode. So you can see here where it says normal. We need to change that blend mode, and we're going to change it to lighten, because what lighten does is it shows up only the things that are lighter off each of the individual layers on top of the bottom layer, and the things that are lighter in the main will be the stars. So we should then get our star trails appear. So we change the blend mode from normal to lighten, and there we go. Instant star trails. We can have a look at that and see if there's anything else that that needs doing. We might have there's a little bit of light has appeared in the bottom corner here, which we might want to try and deal with. Interestingly, there's a light in the church window there, which is probably reflecting off headlights of a car going past. And we've got a little dotted line along here, which is most likely going to be from a plane just going past there. Now, if you want to get rid of those things, you need to mask them out of the particular layer that they're in. So we need to see if we can find them. And unfortunately, what you need to do for that is turn some of the layers on and off and see whether you can begin to narrow down where it's coming from. So, okay, I think we just found, where was it? One of these that, yeah, that one, right. Now you can see on the bottom left-hand corner of the image there, if I turn that off, you're losing a little bit of that light there. Okay. So what we can do with that particular one, select that layer, create a layer mask using this icon here, brush mode, or pick B, D for default colors, and then switch those so that you've got black as your foreground color, and set your opacity to 100%, flow to 100, and then you can just paint over that area there and it will stop whatever's coming in from affecting that. So you can check that there's nothing else coming in on that layer that you don't want. And you can just do that on any of the layers that produces an effect that you're not too keen on having in your image, whatever that might be. Sometimes you might get you get a plane go right through the middle of it, and you think actually that's just ruined the composition, ruined the star trails, and you might want to just remove that frame completely, or you may want to mask it out. It's up to you. But if you just work your way through and find anything that you don't like. There's the one that's turning the church lights sort of on and off. I actually quite like it, to be honest. I prefer it on than off, so I won't mask those out. I think I will, however, mask a bit of this one out here, so add a mask to that, and we're going to take some of that out because I don't want that gravestone on the left there to be quite so bright. Similarly with that next one there, again, there was probably just somebody's, one of the participants must have had their torch on at that moment there, just very briefly, and that's shown up over there. So if we want to darken that area back down again, we just need to find the frames where that light is there, and then we can just darken it down like we've been doing. Okay, so once you've got to the stage where you're happy with the image, you can then carry on processing it further. If you like, you could flatten it. Normally speaking, I don't recommend flattening images in Photoshop because you then can't go back and play around with things. It's a destructive rather than a non-destructive workflow, so I don't tend to recommend it. But in this particular instance, where you might have sort of 40 or 60 or something or more layers that you're dealing with, you might actually decide, yeah, I want to flatten that down just to keep it simple, so that I can then work from there. So I'll just show you quickly then how you might do that. You can come over to the right hand side here and click on, well, you've got the little menu underneath there, and you can come down to where it says Flatten Image. Okay, that will then just squish all those layers together, so you haven't got any more separate layers in there. So that's what the Flatten Image does. You're now just down to one layer, and you could then, for example, pop in a curves layer just to adjust your contrast a little bit in there. Okay, just as an example. And then what you might also like to do on top of that is do a stamp all layer, which is Control Alt Shift and E, or Command Shift Option and E. That gives you one layer with everything in it combined. And then on that layer you can then apply a high pass filter, so filter other high pass. Just apply it to just the detail, so around about 1.6 pixels there, and then you can change that to hard light or soft light, and you'll see that just sharpens things up a little bit. Okay, just makes it pop. And then when you're done, just save it, and that will head back over to Lightroom. So as you can see, it's very simple once you've got the shots to just combine them very quickly in Photoshop. The thing that just takes the time is loading them in, to be honest, and beyond that, the rest of it's quite easy. So I do hope you'll have a go at it, and winter time's a nice easy time to do it because it's dark quite early. So you'll need a series of shots lasting at least 15 minutes to get some good trails in the sky, preferably about half an hour or so. Once you've got that set of images, go through the steps that you've seen, and you should end up with some kind of an interesting night star trails image. So I hope you found that useful, and do sign up to our YouTube channel so that you can keep up with any other videos that we release. Thanks for watching.